Father Fidel. I, Braxis, am writing this to you with a heavy heart, ready to return to the world where I belong. But before I get to my reasons for returning, I must tell you my reasons for solitude. From a young age, as most dwarves are, I was a very proud boy and very much drawn to the spiritual arts. At the age of 27, I began to pour myself into books about the All-Father, Moradin. Most dwarves worship him as the creator of our race, and celebrate him for our abilities to craft with fire and steel. At the age of 56, I was already well into my clerical studies, having been granted the title of Son. My zealot-like fervor for Moradin even drew me to spread the tales of his great might throughout the Forgotten Realms. As a brash young dwarf, I searched far and wide for a place that would give me the greatest challenge. As I had never left the comfort of my own dogmatism before, however, I was unaware of the dangers that leaving home could bring. After weeks of research, I learned of a human realm called the Mora, a war-torn land whose people, in my naive mind, were in great need of new devotion. There they worshipped a deity known as the Crying God. As a young son, it was my duty to rid this place of what I thought to be a weak god. How could the Crying God be worthy of anyone's devotion? So I set off. From the Smoking Mountains in the land of Unthur, it was a long road to get to the Mora. And that journey, well, let me say I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. Without going into too much detail, we can talk about the specific stories later. This was my first taste of the world bereft of pride, where weak-minded men chose a life of thievery over gaining something of their own, where widows and orphans were left to defend for themselves, where people of the same race refused to lend a helping hand to one another. All I had known was the way of my people, a people so proud we would never forget one of our own. I see now that it was only by the protection of Ilmater that I even made it there. To be short, I made it to the Mora weary of what I've already experienced, and much more uncomfortable with the reality of what I had about to face. With the persistent spirit of my people, I entered that land. What I saw was horror. A land torn apart by war and left to fend for itself. To make a long and arduous story short, I made it to my desired location, the Monastery of the Yellow Rose. Here, the followers of Ilmater praised the example of Saint Lars, Ilmater's greatest martyr. Nervous as a mountain ram and with the waning determination, I entered into the monastery, expecting to be greeted with cries of sorrow and weakness. Instead, I was greeted with peaceful, smiling faces. The weeks that followed were some of the most painful I had ever experienced. I had hoped to enter with the confidence to bless these people with the joy of the All-Father, but instead you, Father Fidel, you met me with patience. You let me speak falsehood. You let me try. Throughout those weeks, you showed me that Ilmater isn't the god of weakness or suffering. Even though he's called the Crying God, he is also the god who endures. He protects the people who suffer, in so doing, suffers for them. You showed me a people who, through his guidance, have also learned to endure through whatever trial befalls them. I began to waver, and that doubt terrified me. So after weeks of this, I ran. I was so confused and had to run. For this, I must ask my forgiveness from you, Father Fidel. I should have stayed and let you teach me. I also must admit to you that as I ran, I took a scroll case full of scriptures and prayers. I can't tell you why, but I felt like I had to. They will be returned, don't worry. The thought of running at home did cross my mind, but the shame of doubting the teachings of Moradin drove me to fear my people, driving me into solitude. I had to pray and seek the absolute truth for myself. For 15 years, I wandered the mountains, plains, and forests of the Forgotten Realms, praying to both Moradin and Ilmater, while also reading over the scrolls that they took from the monastery. I heard nothing from Moradin. But what I saw from my distant observations of the civilizations I wandered towards was suffering. Everywhere I went, there was suffering. My mind slowly, over these years, changed from my naturally dwarven inclination of self-sufficiency and racial pride to a realization of other races of the Forgotten Realms. The people of Unthorn, my people, have been so constant to sit in their mountain kingdoms and forget about the sufferings of this realm. I couldn't stand for it any longer. Praying now only to Ilmater, I received an answer. He spoke back. I can't share those words with you. They are for my ears only. But I can tell you that they changed me forever. Ilmater filled me with a compassion I'd never felt before. I began to not only see their suffering, but feel it. He filled me with something else. The purpose to do something about it. By whatever means necessary. Not all dwarves are taught to fight. But as a cleric, I focused more on my studies and prayers to Moradin. As soon as I heard from the Enduring One, however, that knowledge all came back to me with a great zeal. So, with the money I had remaining from the start of my journey, which is no insignificant amount, I purchased armor, a shield, and a warhammer, and charged the local smith with allowing me to use his forge. I knew I could do this better than he. With his forge, and knowing the crest of Ilmater, I brandished my shield with his holy symbol. This may seem like a simple task, but I couldn't imagine the rush of holy energy that rushed through me the moment I picked up the newly modified shield. It was then that the symbol glowed for the first time. With my two new tools of holy purpose, I set off to seek and save those who suffer. For another 10 years, I set out with the holy purpose, and from town to town, seeking those to protect. Not to spread knowledge, but to bring martial justice, all in the name of Ilmater. For a long time, all went well. My connection to the Enduring One grew, and so did my zeal to protect and save all I could. This led me to become prideful. While wandering to a town of Mole River, I came across a group of bandits led by their leader, a half-orc barbarian they called Belrid. They were terrorizing the people of Mole River, and though I was outnumbered, I confronted them. Holy symbol ablaze, I fought with the strength I'd never known before. While dealing the final blow to one of his henchmen, Belrid found the gap in my defenses and struck. Dazed, nearly dead, I could barely see, but what I could see was something I wish I could forget. Belrid, furious of my intervention, burned the town to the ground, leaving me for dead. Waking up almost dead and wounded in the ruined buildings of Mole River, I realized that through my brashness I brought about even further suffering for those poor people. As penance, I stayed. I stayed to help rebuild the lives of those people who had lost so much at my hands. I stayed to wipe off the shame of the pride that led me to act without thinking. Having done all that I could, I set off for the Sword Coast, seeking to learn from my grave mistake and to continue on with my righteous mission. Father Fidel, I write this to you not only to tell you of my conversion to Ilmater's teachings, but to ask you to pray for me. I have the new mission from the Enduring One, to protect all that I can, but I have also found a new goal, to find and stop Belrid for good. So I don't know how. I want you to pray for me. I suspect in your wisdom you will know how. In closing, I hope to see you again, as well as the others at the monastery. I will need your guidance for another task, to find the courage to return to my family. Not only to see them, but to retrieve something very important to me that I left behind before my original journey. I look forward to the day when I can return to you. Until then, continue to sacrifice so that others don't have to. Newly adorned of Ilmater, Braxis Mora.
Hello, everybody. That was a bit of the backstory for our first character, a retired character showcase about Braxis Mora, who was my first ever D&D character. And I wrote that as a fun and interesting way to present his backstory to my dungeon master. And I want to give you a little bit more background of what happened to Braxis after that letter was written. So after he wrote that letter, he came across an adventuring group that would later be called PR expeditions, because when they killed the goblins, the Kragmaw goblins, during their first mission, they saw that all the goblins had these pretty rocks, and they called themselves Prettiest Rock Expeditions, and this is what they called themselves. So they became an adventuring band, became very close friends, and Braxis, with their help, was able to stop chaos, help those who were suffering, and suffer in their stead. Some of the things that were important in his life, he was able to stop Belred. Belred actually joined the orc clans together to attack the Smoking Mountains, the land of the Mora clan. Braxis was actually the son of the king there. And he went back. They were able to sneak into the main mountain where the throne room is, while Belred's army surrounded the area, and was able to see his father again. It was an emotional moment where, even though Braxis was scared that he was going to be turned away, he was embraced, and it was a beautiful moment for him and the family that he left. He discovered that his brother was evil and was working with Belred. He was able also to find the armor and come back for the armor that he had prepared. Braxis was a very established smith in his village, and was able to craft this magical piece of armor, of plate armor, that he left behind before he went on his first adventure. And so they were able to defeat this army of orcs with some help. Later on, by the time he got to level 20, we were having 3 different campaigns going at the same time, and all 3 converged on this final moment where this shadow army was invading all of the Forgotten Realms, and was kind of getting to the end, about to destroy the capital city and kind of end this thing and end this whole world. Well, the emperor of this realm was a very powerful person, and the key to winning this was something called the Dragon's Gate, which was this gate that held all the ancient dragons back. But with the help of Braxis, the PR expeditions, the emperor, they were able to get to this gate, open it. What they found inside is not what they expected. They found all the dragons in human form, standing around this anvil, and they were given, PR Expeditions Braxis, the chance to craft reality as they knew it, to save the world. And in the middle of this vast white expanse, past the Dragon's Gate, Braxis and his friends banged on this anvil, wiping out the shadow army, saving the world, but also in doing so, creating 8 more realms, and also imbuing their power into these realms. Braxis decided, with his power, with his last final expression of the might that he had gained, to spread hope throughout the world. You know, in Lord of the Rings, how things just tend to work out sometimes. Gandalf just happens to show up with the Rohirrim at Helm's Deep at the perfect moment. The sun comes over in the perfect moment. Hope seems to win out uncannily in that world, and that's what Braxis wanted to spread to the realms, was this sense in these places where hope could be restored. That there was always someone to call upon when things seemed hopeless. And after that, he stayed around with an order called the Dorian Order, and worked for them till the end of his days. And that is the story of Braxis Mora. Now, this is the first in our, I guess, hopefully long series of retired character spotlights and also character creations. I think it'd be pretty cool to kind of spotlight some of the characters that we loved playing. Me, my friends, anybody else, even you, if you have any characters that you want to be shown off the exploits that they did. But yeah, so look for these. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time on the Odd Dice Roll.